The date is October 7th, 2019. This is the day of the first official debate in English with all of the leaders of the political parties in Canada, including Max Bernier. And that was a fight that the People's Party of Canada had to fight particularly hard to win. And finally, Canadians are going to get a chance to hear and see Max Bernier speak to the issues that Max Bernier and the People's Party of Canada consider important. But it's a date that's important for another reason. Even as we speak, while no decision has yet been rendered, the company of Candace Malcolm, the True North Centre, has had to go to court in order to fight a ban on her company participating as independent journalists in the debate process. Absolutely unconscionable, and it's just another clear indication that freedom of the press is either dead or dying in Canada, and it's about time Canadians stood up and did something about it. This has also been a particularly difficult week for Canadians who believe in the freedom of the press and the freedom of expression, because there are a number of other issues that have taken place that really lead me to be extremely concerned about where Canada is going, about where democracy is in this country, and about what has happened to freedom of the press and freedom of expression. Late last week, there was another indication just before the weekend that there was going to be a major reveal on activities purportedly, and again, this is just anecdotal, it's not information that's been corroborated, but there was information that our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had potentially engaged in illegal activities sometime in his past. People are pointing to his time at West Point Grey Academy in Vancouver as being the source of the criminal activity, I guess, if that's what it in fact turns out to be. And the problem is that there's indications that a lot of people knew something about this and have hidden it from the Canadian public. Now, again, this is anecdotal, there's nothing proven, but there was a lot of indication over the weekend and a lot of spin over the weekend that there were court injunctions filed against the Globe and Mail who were prepared to publish a story concerning activities of Justin Trudeau back in the day when he was an instructor, I guess, at West Point Grey, and that there may have been indiscretions involving underaged individuals, one, possibly more, we really don't know. But what's really disturbing to me is that we have a press that apparently knew something about this and yet has been hiding this from the Canadian public for some protracted period of time. And the reason I say that is that there was a gentleman who brought the story forward, Warren Kinsella, in a tweet just prior to the weekend. Everybody waited with bated breath to see what was going to happen. And there was a response to his tweet. And that response came from Amy McPherson, who's been quite active in social media since her days at the CBC, and I believe she was at the Huffington Post. Not positive, but I'd have to go back and check on that. But in any event, she now acts as a stringer, as a digital media provider of content and articles and publishing and those kinds of things. And she immediately responded to the Warren Kinsella tweet, and unfortunately, her tweet has been removed from the internet. Now, that I find very, very disturbing and very concerning, because the tweet was about the alleged misconduct of Justin Trudeau back in Vancouver at West Point Grey. And while the tweet is no longer available, to paraphrase, it indicated that what Amy was saying was, if this is what I think it is, then anybody who publishes this story had better be prepared for court action, because somebody's going to come after you legally for publishing this story. That's concerning to me, and it should be concerning to you as Canadians. My response to her was, says another CBC sycophant hack who believes Boyd blunders should be protected at all costs, the rule of law be damned. Does the confirmation of no non-disclosure agreement give us a hint? Should next week's debate be a highly rated event as a result of this? Time to run Justin Trudeau the fraud out of office. That was essentially what I came back with. And mysteriously, after a number of retweets and a number of likes, my retweet is still showing up on the internet in Twitter, and the original tweet from Amy McPherson is no longer available. Of course, this leads me to ask questions on a much broader scope. We are in a situation where the mainstream media no longer sees themselves as an objective arbiter of news and fact. Instead, they have become partisan hacks in many, many cases. They're taking positions on things. They are deliberately either promoting stories or, more disturbingly, on the other side, they're burying stories that may be important to Canadians, and particularly going into this 2019 federal election. If there are things about political leaders in the country of Canada that we need to know about, if there are character flaws, if there are actual legal actions outstanding in process, and this information is being hidden from the press, then it's absolutely unconscionable, and they have absolutely no right to call themselves journalists. We have a CBC in this country that thinks that it has the right to tell Canadians how we should vote and what are the strengths and weaknesses of all the political parties, when they themselves are incredibly biased in their coverage, and they're shamelessly so. They don't even try to hide the fact. The only good news is that their audience nationwide has dropped to the point where they're almost insignificant. And I know they don't want to hear that, but maybe Canadians need to know that their viewing audience now on a daily basis in 2019 has dropped well below the 500,000 mark. So less than maybe 1.5% to 2% of all Canadians actually listen to or watch CBC News at this point in time. And that's probably a good thing, because I can't think of anybody who's more biased, who's more partisan, and who are more sycophants to the Liberal Party and Justin Trudeau. And I don't believe that it's in anybody's best interest for any of the media to continue to hide the truth from Canadians. If there are things out there that we need to know about our political leaders, then that information should be brought forward. That information should be made available to Canadians, so that we can make an informed decision in October 2019, and so that we can elect a prime minister and a political party based on the facts, not on the shaded, biased, partisan interests of political hacks who are involved in the business of covering up events, situations, possibly even criminal activity that we don't know about at this point in time, in favor of candidates that they are supporting, and absolutely blistering and blackballing other candidates that they don't want to see anybody find out about in the Canadian political spectrum, and that includes Maxime Bernier and the People's Party of Canada. Maxime Bernier is going to have the first opportunity tonight to actually participate in a nationwide event that's going to be broadcast nationally. And this is an opportunity for all Canadians to finally find out what the People's Party of Canada and Maxime Bernier represent. And we hope that this opportunity shows Canadians that there has been, for over a year now, a viable alternative to the existing political parties, and that this information has been deliberately and maliciously held from you in the interests of protecting the existing political parties, who are actually in the process of buying off and paying the media through things like the $595 million slush fund that they've made available to broadcasters, as well as the well over $1 billion that we waste on CBC annually as taxpayers. No question in my mind that CBC needs to be defunded. No question in my mind that we need to hold journalists accountable. And if they're not going to be held accountable, no longer can you call them journalists. They're nothing but partisan hacks. And that's just the way it has to be. So again, I appreciate the opportunity to have reached out to you on these matters. I really hope that a court of law this afternoon is going to protect the sanctity of the freedom of expression and the freedom of the press, and allow Candace Malcolm's company and others, Rebel Media have had people actually harassed at events, denied access to events by both the Liberals and the Conservatives, because the narrative is that These people have to be protected at all costs, and that's absolutely unconscionable. It's unconstitutional, and it should not be allowed by Canadians who really care about our country and its sovereignty. So talk to you soon, and hope everybody has a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye.